When I drink tea with my friends, I notice that something about our chakras just all open up and we're very relaxed. And we don't feel like we're intense and trying to figure out things or trying to solve problems. It kind of just ends up where our hearts are open and our conversations flow. And through that, we receive answers. We have even stronger connections. And that's why I always love drinking tea when I do readings. What I also notice when we drink tea and we're watching it brew and we're waiting for it to get hot and all that stuff, there's like a different type of patience that comes with it, where we don't feel like we have to try so hard and we can naturally let things go and relax. And doing that process of not trying so hard, it's like we value that time of patience and we value that space between A and B and that space of being in the now. There's different ways of looking at tea in a martial arts perspective and a healing perspective as well. And we're going to go see our friend David Wei today, and he's going to share with us how his perspective is on tea and Kung Fu tea ceremony. So this video is going to be longer than usual. So at the same time, grab your favorite tea, get it together, and drink some tea with us.
This is my husband Bruce Chu, and he teaches internal Kung Fu. And this is our friend David Wei, and he learned also from Wudang Temple and different backgrounds of martial arts. And he's always been showing me and sharing with me some tea, and I wanted him to show a traditional Kung Fu tea ceremony with us today. So you tell us a little bit about yourself and...
Well, if I may say, I'm gonna look directly in the camera to say this. If I may say, this is Sifu Bruce Chu. He is my first martial arts teacher. Of course I did martial arts before, of course I did martial arts after, but he's my first teacher that I chose and the first teacher that chose me back. And I've been with him my entire martial career. I attribute every skill set that I've attained through the foundation that he's given me. So it's an honor to share tea with you today.
Thank you, thank you. I just take the credit.
Yeah, he takes credit for my hard work.
See what you got here.
Great. So we have a very simple Kung Fu tea setup. Disclaimer, I am by no means a tea master. There are people that know tea. I just love tea. And there's a big distinction there. So there's people that know all the nuances, all the details, all the ins and outs. I may not be that guy, but I know what I like. And so when I was invited to share Kung Fu tea ceremony, I'm likely gonna do it wrong. However, it feels good and it's a gesture of hospitality. Okay, it's an offering of my heart. So little nuances of details of protocols might vary from tradition to tradition, but the essence of the heart, the gift of hospitality is the same.
All right.
So the elements that we have here, we have a teapot. This is a Yixing purple clay vessel, handmade. We have what's called a Gong Dao Bei, a decanter vessel, often termed as a friendship vessel. We'll talk more about this as we go. We have a platform of sorts, an altar, if you will. This is a tray, a tea table. Oftentimes, tea ceremonies, certain styles have you pour water everywhere. And so the cool feature of this table, it has these slots so that I can spill water everywhere and be contained, not be all messy. Okay. Next we have a pressed tea cake, and very, very interesting presentation of tea. Many of us may be more familiar with tea bags or loose leaf tea, and so when we get a firmly pressed cake like this, it might be funny for some people. So we're gonna go over how to use these tea cakes as well. First thing to do in a tea ceremony is to recognize the perspective. Okay, we're not serving tea, we're being humble hosts. And in this practical principle of as above, so below, the same hospitality I extend to my loved ones is the same hospitality I extend to my tea. Allow me to explain. This isn't a teapot. This is my humble home. And before a long guest comes from far, far away, I want to clean and warm my home so that they feel welcome in my house. So the very first step in Kung Fu tea ceremony is to clean your house, right? So we will put hot water into the vessel. Specifically with this variety of tea, you want to use ugly, rapid boil. Okay, so hot that the water blah, 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 blah. That's the hot. That's the temperature that you want for your tea ceremony. Okay. Other teas, oolongs, whites, greens, reds. If you use too hot of a tea, it may scald. However, specifically with ripe pu'er, it's not scared of the heat. Yeah? So the hotter, the better. Yeah. Okay. So right now I have hot water, just water, in this teapot, empty. Otherwise. And the hot water is now warming and cleaning the vessel, right? And now if I pour this water out, consider that the clay is so thick that now there's a residual temperature, there's a residual humidity inside the pot. So it's as if I've created a sauna for my guest, right? So now, here is said guest. The way you open a tea cake is you kind of unfold it from the back, and what you'll find is that little dimple here in the back indicates that this is the tail end, okay? And then the smooth face indicates that it's the front. Now, Chinese are very big on what we say 面子. Gei mianzi. They want to save face. Maybe you've heard this term before, right? So when I dig into my tea cake, I want to save the face. I'm gonna pick from the back. Make sense? And what I want to do is, I'll take my tea knife and I'm just going to run the knife along the edge. I'm going to run the knife along the inside, and what you'll find is these little grooves that the knife just naturally falls into. And so you take that groove and you press into it. Careful not to break or damage leaves unnecessarily. Okay? We take our little bit of tea. We've just broken off a small little bit, doesn't take much. This is aged fermented tea, so a dab will do you. Now my guest from far, far away is now enjoying the warmth of my home. If we take a look back at the cake, you'll see that we have saved face. So now when I put this away in the store, when I open it up for friends, I still have a lovely presentation to share with friends. Okay? I'll set this aside for now. Consider our guest.
Right.
Is now inside the sauna. The equivalent of our guest has come from a long travel. Here, let me hang up your coat. Here, take off your shoes. Okay? Now, we're gonna say, hey friend, you're gonna stay for a while. Let me run you a bath. Right? And so we add a little bit more of this ugly, rapid boiling hot water. And we add just enough to cover the leaves. And at this point, we would let it sit. This is what's called first rinse. Okay? The idea is, I'm gonna throw this away. This is a wash of sorts. And so much like washing rice, you throw that water away. Right? So same thing, after my guest takes a shower, I'm gonna throw that water away. And now that the guest has taken his shower, now they feel comfortable, and this tight, tight press of a cake has now opened a little bit, right? And so, sure, we can avoid the wash. Sure, we could start brewing right away, but that densely pressed tea, we'd be brewing from the outside in. But because we've taken the time to establish this rapport, make them feel welcome, let them breathe, let them bathe, now, if you were to look, it's unfurling, right? And it's because they open their heart, they can now share treasures. So this rinse, common to just throw it away. Also common to cultivate a tea pet. Yeah, so some people will have like a little rock or some kind of caricature, and they just pour the excess rinse over the tea pet.
Well, that's why like sometimes they have like the little frog. Or,
Yeah.
I always wonder what that was for.
Yeah. Because the idea is, this is unglazed clay. Oftentimes the tea pets are unglazed too. And these teas have natural occurring oils in them. And so if I pour my waste, over time, those oils will seep into the pores of the clay and give it a glaze. It's called a patina, right? And so you can even kind of see around the rim here, you kind of got this grunge, this kind of crusty, right? You can tell it's been used. It has a practice to it. So this is called a patina. And so the idea is after you every day pour over your tea pet, it starts to change color and it becomes uniquely your own. It gains a character. Yeah. Short story, I was raised in the Roman Catholic Church and I used to pray the rosary with the Filipino grandmas once a month. And the head grandma, she had this golden rosary, but the story, it's not gold. It was sterling silver. But for 30 years, every day she prays and rubs, and then the oils from her skin, and then just life. Now it's a golden rosary, right? Alchemy. And so the idea is, here's this rough clay, unglazed, but every day I'm drinking tea, and it just gets weathered and charactered and changes its composition. Before we actually get into this stuff, seafood rose, when are we gonna drink the tea?
Yeah, we're like drooling over here.
Okay, last note. It's often said that tea is medicine, right? Common conversation. And if it does, certainly not for the pathologies of our common era. Right? People are too sick for tea. And that's actually the key. It's not that tea is medicine. It's that I'm so healthy, all I need is tea to set me straight. So it's not that tea is amazing, it's that I'm responsible. This is why tea is medicine. Makes sense, yeah. And so if there is any medicinal value to tea, again, not the chemical composition, the medicine comes from the process. What? We had to wait for the water to boil. We had to listen for the water to boil. Pretty soon, we're gonna start smelling things. We're gonna start looking and observing color. We're gonna taste the tea and feel the temperature as it goes down. Guess what? We're engaging our five senses.
I was just gonna say that, and like with acupuncture, the 5 elements, everything else.
And so if there's any medicine, it's slowing down and taking time to check in with each of these gifts that we have for granted.
Different organs.
Yeah. And so, guess what? People come to my clinic. If we book 1 hour, half an hour, we're drinking tea. And some of them will say, "We're gonna start?"
It's like it already started.
And those are the people I say, "Here, let me refer you to another clinic." Because you said it just right. It has already started. I'm already diagnosing. I'm already judging your posture. I'm looking at your tone. I'm listening to your voice, your cadence, your tempo, your inclinations, your perspective you tell your story from. Are you a victor? Are you a server? Like, who are you? All of that is happening amidst conversation. And all that contributes to the treatment.
That's what's interesting is, for me, I always wanted to do tea ceremonies while I do readings. But to create a session with a timed session is very, very hard to do. But when I drink tea, my intuition just flows because I'm relaxed and I'm cooled back and I'm having conversation and it flows easier and effortless. Versus I'm on a timer, I'm like, okay, we got 30 minutes, ask your questions,
Yeah. We're ready now, okay? We're ready. So, now, you may not have been able to see it initially, you may not be able to see it now, but it was very densely pressed tea picked from this cake. And now it's had time to kind of unfurl. It's softer now. And so now we reintroduce the water, okay? From here, we're gonna do what's called a flash steeping. As soon as I pour the water in, as soon as I cap it, I pour the water out. This is called a flash steep. When tea is brewed in this way, you're gonna be able to get many, many, many steeps out of these teas. And each brew is gonna have a different color, a different smell, a different flavor, right? So as we're just initially starting, we get this crimson red. As it opens more, it tends to get darker, richer. Then the power starts to fade. Once the power starts to fade, you can do hotter water, longer steeps, and try to really extract. Okay? As host, again, the conversation of hospitality, I'm gonna taste it first. Make sure it's not poison.
I'll wait a little while. No, I'm just kidding.
Then we pour our guests tea.
And I guess that's how you feel when you drink the tea after you've done all of the work and conversation and when you feel good, the water is beneficial as you drink it because you're vibrating at a very high level too. So I think that helps with the drinking of the tea.
All right.
And you know how they talk about plants? They have a lot of magic in it. And I'm not going to go into that kind of stuff, but then, you know, they always talk about roots, herbs, and magic. And when we drink this, you kind of feel like this is a grounding as well for you. You know?
Yeah. These teas, specifically this variety, we work with small artisans and cultivars. And so these teas really rich flavor profiles and really strong impact on the body. You spoke to grounding, right? These are 800 years old trees. Oftentimes when we think tea harvest, we see people in these sloped hats and terraced hills bending over to pick a small leaf from a bush. No. 800-year-old wild tea trees in the banyan forests. Grandmas have to climb into these trees to pick sprouts the size of their palm. It's amazing stuff. And so yeah, brew that grounding set. More?
Yes, please.
I guess it really opened it.
That's going to be a good one. That's the dark one. Right before it gets too dark. It's that red that I like.
Yeah. So some people like to brew it really, really dark and rich. Those are going to be for the kidneys. After the dark richness fades out, you'll come to these crimson reds. Heart. Continue to brew, that crimson red turns into a golden amber. Spleen. Continue to brew.
Right, yeah.
The same water I pour in is the same water I get out. Clear. Lung, large intestine.
Right.
All the while, that's water nourishing my liver.
Right.
Wood, 5 elements, 1 cup. So with tea, specifically this variety, we want to slurp it loud. Right? Yeah, just like that. And what's going to happen is that bubbling effect on your palate, that's going to oxygenate the tea and awaken the flavor profile. Right? Because it's the oxygen that makes it tasty. Then from there, you have the shen, what's called the dragon breath, the steam, the vapor. You have the jing, the actual fluid. And then you have the qi, the in-between, the bubbling of the fluid turning into mist. So not the mist, not the fluid, but the active in-between. Right? So the fluid is the jing, the steam is the shen, and the sipping qi is the qi. 3 treasures.
And you know, I had a teacher once that, a Tai Chi teacher, we used to go to Chinese restaurants. And after they pour tea, they would always go like this. Is that good or bad?
It's good.
It's good? Okay, because it would be like Sheshe or Doje Sai, right?
Do you know the story to that?
No.
I'm so excited to tell you that story. It's such a generic story that I almost take it for granted because I think everyone should know it. So whenever someone doesn't know it, okay. So the story is, once upon a time there was an emperor, and this particular emperor was of the people. And this particular emperor would dress down in normal attire and go into the town and go into the markets and the bazaars to interact with his, what do they call it? His empire. Subjects, sure, yeah. Okay? But of course, the emperor has to go with an entourage. You know, you gotta have bodyguards, right? Like this guy kills bears, right? And so the entourage, they too have to dress down. Now, let's say they're at a tea house and, you know, emperor really undercover, can't be any special than anybody else, so he will pour tea to his entourage. Now, you're not even supposed to be in the same room as the emperor, much less 10 paces, much less face to face. And here's the emperor serving you tea?
Right.
Oh my goodness, you should be on your hands and like bowing, right? But if you do that in public, blow the cover. Who's this person getting bowed to just for serving tea? So what do? I still have to bow to you.
Oh, so see, because my Tai Chi teacher would say Doje Sai, or he would say Sheshe, right? And then I wasn't sure if that was just a local thing or if that was a proper thing, because coming from Western side, it seems rude, like thanks, you know what I mean? So it always made me wonder, like, you know, who I'm learning from and what, you know, it's good to ask.
Yeah. Or also too, if someone is pouring you water and you tap, oh, it's enough. Okay, stop. They won't fill all the way. Yeah, it's true.
Okay, so what is the teapot one then? You know how they open the teapot?
Yeah.
And then they leave it on the side?
Yeah. So the teapot one, there's a story in an old restaurant where a customer said that the waiter let his bird out of the teapot. Of course, that's stupid. The customer just wanted a free meal. And he says, this waiter, I had a bird in my teapot. The waiter let my bird out. Right? And so the waiter couldn't prove. Right? And so got in trouble and had to pay for the meal. Right? But that's the way the story came about, right? But the idea is when your teapot is empty, you leave it like that. And then that's the cue for the waiter to come and fill it back up. Right? So you don't have to wave them down and say, hey. You just do this.
And they know a bird's not in it.
They know the bird's not in there, so you have to put more water in.
It really makes me understand now more why it's something that is really known in the Taoist, because everything is energy and how the frequencies and the 5 elements and everything comes together. Yeah.
You could say that when you say the tea is good today, that could be a compliment for the person that's keeping company with you.
Mm-hmm.
And it can also be a compliment of the particular way that the tea is made.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so that can be used as a very good tool.
Yeah.
Last cup. One more cup. One more cup.
Last cup.
Okay, last cup, right?
Alright, thank you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, David, for being here.
So I'm back and I really enjoyed this tea ceremony. And in the comments below, put down the kind of tea that you like. I'm very curious.
How should I introduce you? Okay.
Son. Mother, father, son.
I'm gonna have a lot of comments and questions if I say that, especially from my mom. Yeah.
Time for yum cha.
This pot, it's roughly 180 mLs. The general rule of thumb is 5 grams per 100 mLs. And so that was too technical for you.
They know a bird's not in it.
They know the bird's not in there, so you gotta put more
Right.
water inside.
So you take the bird out of your shirt.
Oh. I didn't tell her.
Okay. I'll be up all night tonight editing them.
Leave a comment in the tab below if you find this interesting. Don't forget to smash that like button.
Oh wow, you're saying it all for me. I don't need to say it. Right on.
Click your notifications and subscribe. It's going to help our algorithms.
Okay, I gotta take that out.